Welcome to Moshiach Matters. Just make this in silent. Okay. We have an exciting class today. Parshas Toldos. We are holding at a crucial sale. Vayomer Yaakov says to Esav, Michra Kayom, sell to me like the day, es b'chayrazcha, your firstborn rights, lead to me. So in last class, we discussed the significance of why Yaakov was so adamantly desiring this bechora, this firstborn right. It really doesn't seem to have much to gain. I mean, what is there in this firstborn? I mean, the simple interpretation is that the service to Hashem, the one in charge, the Kohen was the Bechor. And then later it was taken away from the Bechor and given to the Kohanim. But if you think about it, we don't really find anybody, before the giving of the Torah, we say it was the Bechorim that can offer, and have the priestlyhood, but that's not really the case, because you see that Avram offered sacrifices, and Yitzchak offered sacrifices, and Yaakov, and we don't find that all of them were Bechorim. So what's the idea that when we see? I mean, anybody in the time pre the giving of the Torah, anybody that wanted to bring a korban can bring a korban. So what's this big thing? Last week I discussed something from the Chabad Chassidic, which was really fascinating, that usually Bechor is not such a big deal, but only in the person that's reestablishes himself in the image of God, and God's child, whatever that means, when Hashem emanates the attributes, we see a specific potency and power in the firstborn. And that was as we see in Keser. Keser is called the firstborn, and that's where the infinite light of Hashem is, far more powerful than the other attributes, beginning with Chachma, which is far greater diminished. And also Das is considered the firstborn compared to the 6 emotions, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes. And we know that Das is so much more powerful than all the other particular emotions. So therefore, even though when God created man, he created him in the image of himself, and in that sense, Adam's firstborn should have had tremendous power, but it's not that case, because we know that the offspring that has made it and continues to make it in the world is Shes, and Shes is not the first of Adam, he's his third son. But last week we mentioned that it was ruined when man diminished his appearance, and when the human being isn't anymore in the image of God because of his sin. So then he lost that quality of having the potency in his firstborn. But it was restored since we learned the Avos, our forefathers, the patriarchs, they rectified the sin of the Eitz Hadas. So, and Avram Avinu was the first one to do that, and Sarah rectified Chava's sin, and it's particularly related to the mother because by firstborn it's Peter Rechem, the one who comes out of the womb first, and Chava was the one who messed up really badly, so Sarah was the one who rectified it, and so Yitzchak, who was born to Avram Avinu after his bris milah, and to Sarah, right? So then he is considered the firstborn, but not only that, he's the first person returning back to that pre-sin state, and therefore by him the firstborn has incredible potent power, and that's why it was so important for Yaakov that by his children that we would look that the one who has access to all that Keter energy, Keser light, that is Ein Sof, that is infinite, was the one who would be the firstborn. We also discussed that later when it was given to the Kohanim are drawing and pumping life from Chachma. Chachma is the best substitute if we can't pull from Keser, but if we can pull from Keser, we're pulling from a much deeper place. When Moshiach will come, we will say to Yitzchak, you are our father, and that's when the Avodah is going to return back to the power of the Bechor, and in order to be able to achieve the Messianic revelations, the Messianic lights that are going to be in the days of Moshiach, we need to pull from Keser, and again, only the Bechor can pull from Keser. And that was the idea of taking this Bechor. That's what we learned last week from the Oratorah, from the Tzemach Tzedek. And now I'd like to share with you a similar idea, continuing on that theme, that this sale was basically a necessity for the days of Mashiach. And that is from the great and saintly, the Bnei Yissaschar, the great Chassidic master. And he's asked the same question, dealing with the same problem. What was the big deal of the Bechorah? What was its... He points out an interesting thing. He says, first of all, the word over here is strange. We have to deal with the word that is questioned over here is the word michra, the spelling. Michra, it should have said machra. Machra, sell. Michra is spelled with a chirik. And if you're into diktuk, into the right pronunciation, the word should have been machra, not michra. And there must be a deep secret of why the Torah changes the correct pronunciation and puts a chirik there, an E sound instead of an A sound. So he explains that the reason, this was a Masorah. In other words, we have it a tradition, but there must be a reason why we have the tradition. So he explains it as follows. He says that you have to say, based on all the questions we asked earlier, that there really isn't too much benefit from getting the Bechorah in the times of Yaakov, because as he brings this idea, if it wasn't, these are his words, if he says, if it was in those days, so anybody can be makriv in the Mizbeach, like Noach, Avram, Yitzchak, and it's not Nafka with the firstborn, as I mentioned that question earlier. And if it's referring to the time when the Jewish people went out of Egypt, he says it's very strange to believe. So then it means everybody who's firstborn at that time, just because Yaakov is now going to be the firstborn, does that mean that all of his descendants are going to have the right, even if they're not the Bechorim? It has to be the Bechor. So what's the idea that by Yaakov getting the Bechorah, they're all going to, that means, would that mean that all the children of Yaakov are worthy to do the service? That doesn't make any sense. Therefore, he says like this: Yaakov purchased the Bechorah for the days of Moshiach. Because after Moshiach comes, and as I spoke last week, I'm going to fight this tooth and nail. I'm a Kohen. So after Moshiach comes, of course, the service is going to go back to the Kohanim. We see that from davening, that V'hashev Kohanim L'avodasav, that the Kohanim will go back to their avoda. That's for sure. But it could be that in a later stage, in the days of Moshiach, that the avoda is going to go back to the firstborns. And that's why it says, and that's why he says, the Torah intentionally puts the word in order to indicate that the sale was not for current, but Yaakov was looking far, far, far into the future when the Bechorah is going to go back to the avoda, the service, the officiating in the temple and the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi. He's going to go back to the Bechorim. It's for that reason that he bought this. You see it in the word michra. He says michra is as we said earlier, instead of a kametz, it's a chirik. Now, Kabbalistically, we know, he brings from the Arizal, that the nekudos, the various different pronunciation and vowelizations that have to do with these signs, kamatz, patach, chirik, cholam, all these different signs, they all indicate the different attributes. Chirik, he says, is a netzach. That when you see a chirik, it's referring to the energy and the power of netzach. Now, he brings from the Arizal that all the redemptions, all the earlier redemptions, the reason why these redemptions were not permanent, they weren't long-lasting, was because those redemptions came from the attribute of Hod. The power of the redemption came from the attribute of Hod, and that's why it didn't last. He says only the up-and-coming redemption is going to be generating life and energy. Its power is going to be derived from the power of Netzach, and Netzach means eternity, and that's why the redemption is going to be an eternal redemption. He says, take a look in the Arizal in the Kavanas of Hanukkah, where he discusses this idea. And therefore, we can understand why the Michra over here, says the Holy Bnei Yisachar, Sasar. The reason why in the word michra over here is a chirik, because this is indicating that when is this sale important? Why? Well, the whole validity, the whole significance of this sale is in a time when the chirik, when we're going to be deriving from the chirik, which is Netzach, which is the time of Moshiach, which in the Messianic age, the flow of energy is going to be coming from Netzach. And by the way, we know that Netzach, it fits with what we said earlier from the Oratorah, that it was for that time, that it was necessary to draw the light of Keser, because we know that from all the attributes, the one attribute that's rooted deepest in Keser is Netzach. It's as discussed in the discourses of Basi Lagani, in the discourses of Basi Lagani, of the previous Chabad Rebbe, of Yud and of the Rebbe, that the word, that Netzach is rooted the deepest. And so the two go together, Netzach and Keser. So now we can understand why the Torah says a michra, not machra, because it's indicating that the whole importance and significance of the sale was for a time when of the future, which is hinted to in the chirik. Okay. Another interesting explanation that is on this verse again that relates to the sale, but this is the opposite. This is actually explaining that the significance of the sale was only for these days, but not for the future. And this is based on the word when we say when the pasuk says michra kayom, sell me like the day, as becharas chali. What is this idea of sell it to me like the day? We actually spoke about this last week. What's the emphasis of selling it like the day? What is the significance of that? So here's an interesting thing. We know that when Yaakov, when Rivka, when Yaakov and Esav's mother Rebecca, was questioning the intense struggle that the birth pangs that she was experiencing, she was told a prophecy, and in the prophecy it was told that the older one will serve the younger one. So now we get into a problem, because now it seems like Yaakov has got the upper hand. If the older one is going to serve the younger one, so we want, and that's going to be the ultimate state, that the older one, whoever that is, going to serve the younger one. Now, if Yaakov has got the advantage because he's the younger one, if that's the case, it seems like Yaakov is doing for himself a tremendous disservice. What's the disservice that Yaakov is doing for himself? By making himself the older one, and the prophecy said that the older one will serve the younger one, he is making himself the servant, not the master. So why would Yaakov do that? So Yaakov thought about that. Yaakov didn't miss anything. That's the reason why Yaakov said, Michra, sell it to me kayom, like today. What he meant to say is like this. In today's days, there is a value in being the older one. What's the value of being the older one? Is that's the one that serves, that has the bechora to serve, to do the avoda, to serve, to officiate. And in that sense, I want the bechora for what it's worth today. I don't want it in the future. Because after Moshiach comes, then it's going to be fulfilled that the older one will serve the younger one. And then I want to go back to being the younger one. And that's why he emphasized that Michra Kayom, as it is currently today, not with its full meaning for the future. So that's actually an opposite pirush. The pirushim that we said earlier was that the main objective of the sale was to achieve it for the future, for the days of Mashiach. But in this aspect, we see the opposite. So says the Shevet Sofer. Okay, but what I would really like to share with you is a teaching is a very interesting medrash. The medrash Rabbah is bothered by the Michra Kayom, sell it to me like the day. So the medrash says like this. This is a cryptic medrash, but we have a phenomenal explanation on this cryptic medrash. The medrash on the pasuk Michra Kayom, medrash Rabbah, Amr Eloi, he said to him, Zavin li chad yoim in didach. All I'm asking you, my brother Esav, sell me one day. Sell me one of your days. Give me one day. Amr Rabacha, So Rabbi Acha comes along, and Rabbi Acha says, hey, I'm challenging you. Rabbi Acha gives us all a challenge. And he says like this, Kol mi sheyedei lachshav yemei hagolus, anybody who knows how to calculate the days of exile, Yimtzo will realize sheyoim echad yashev Yaakov b'shalva b'tzila shel Esav, that one day Yaakov sat peacefully under the shadow of Esav. So again, there is an exile. And during the long and bitter exile, Yaakov is going to be persecuted, and go through the horrors of subjugation to his brothers Esav. But one day he's going to have peace. And that's what Yaakov meant, sell me one day, give me a little piece. And the Medrash says, if you know the secret of the exile, you can calculate that one day Yaakov, the sale was valid. Esav gave him one day that he's going to have menucha, that he's going to have peace and tranquility under Esav. So what does this mean? So the Mefarshim having a hard time trying to figure out what's the significance of this one day. Obviously, we have to be able to know the length of the duration of the exile, which no one has figured out yet. So comes the Chassam Sofer, and he tries to crack the code. Various try to crack the code. Pnei Yeshua, but I really, really, really appreciate the Chassam Sofer's Pirush, and the Chassam Sofer is the greatest of the great. And he gives two Pirushim, and both of them are fascinating. On this idea of if that Yaakov purchased one day of peace during the exile. So he says like this. There is a pasuk in Parshas Bahar, which, by the way, if you really want to find the secret of Moshiach, you got to look in Parshas Bahar, because is a few places in the Torah where the Torah is very, 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 very geuladik. Parshas Bahar is talking all about the mitzvah of Shemitah, but then the Shemitah of Yovel, the Jubilee year, which we know that Yovel, the 50th year, is the time when everybody goes to freedom. And continuously in Parshas Bahar, it's talking about Geula. It's talking about people redeeming, whether a servant that was sold into slavery, or a person redeeming a land and a field or a house, which these are all things that need to be redeemed. The house is referring to the Beis HaMikdash. The land is referring to Eretz Yisroel. The person that's being sold into slavery is referring to the Jewish people. So it's talking about, so there it says, one of the psukim in Parshas Bahar, it says, Achrei, hold on. Let me give the pasuk over here. This would help me if I have a Chumash Bahar. Give me a second. Give me 1 second, because I didn't. Acharei nimkar, here's the words. Acharei nimkar, after he was sold, geula tialoi, a redemption will be to him. So the Chassam Sofer got excited. You know, all the great rabbis, all the great tzaddikim, they were so longing for the redemption that every place they got a little clue, they got all excited. So when you see these words, after he was sold, geula tialoi, a geula will be to him, the Chassam Sofer comes up that over here is hinted to when Moshiach is coming. And what's his kates? And he gives a kates. What's the Chassam Sofer's kates? His kates comes out to the year 1810. They all made kitzim in their lifetimes, right? They wanted Moshiach. In the year Tov Kuf Ayin. Tov Kuf Ayin, 1810. Or 1811. How does he come up with that cheshbon? Acharei nimkar. So he knows he has to crack the code. So how does he crack the code? Basically, he says the Galus is going to be for 1,742 years. That's his cheshbon of Galus. 1,742. Remember, similar to the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe's calculation was 1775 years, 1,775. The Chassam Sofer says, and it's interesting, the Alter Rebbe's Geula, the way he placed it, was after his own passing. They lived at the same time. The Alter Rebbe passed away in 1812. And the Chassam Sofer gives the date for 1810, 1811, and that's during the Napoleon War. That's actually during that time. The Alter Rebbe gives the date 1775 of years of exile, which brought it to 1840s. But in any case, let's go where? How does he calculate? Where does he get this number 1742? And it's interesting. I think the Lubavitcher Rebbe mentioned it because the Rebbe, I have to do some research on it. I think the Rebbe mentioned when it came Tafshin Mem Beis, which means it's 1742, 5742. The Rebbe says there is a kates for this year, for 1742. The Rebbe was very strongly Moshiach. Again, it's in my head somewhere. I'm going to do some research on it, but I think the Rebbe spoke about it, and the Rebbe must be meaning the Chassam Sofer's kates. Because the Chassam Sofer says that the exile is 1,742 years, but he places it in the year 1811. And the Rebbe was saying 5742. But why? Because the Chassam Sofer says the time of exile is 1,742 years. The question is the same question that I kept on telling you all along when we were doing the Alter Rebbe's kates. When do you start that count? Do you start it when the Beis Hamikdash was actually destroyed, or do you start it in the year 4000? Which you see the Orach Chaim and others keep on moving, that fluctuating between these two dates. Because the Galus was really supposed to start in the year 4000. It started 172 years earlier. Okay, Akev, remember? We learned about this earlier. That 100, it's a very significant number. 172 is because the snake bit Chava, Akev. He didn't bite her. Hashem tells the snake that you're going to be able to bite the person on Akev by his heel. Akev means the heel. So the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed 172 years, which is Gematria Akev, before the time of Golus that's really supposed to start in the year 4000. So the Chassam Sofer makes his calculation. I'm going to tell you how he makes his calculation. But the amount of years of exile, he says, is 1742. If we started in the year 4000, it will end up in 5,742, Tafshin Mem Beis. And that's when I think the Rebbe was saying that there is a kates. I don't know if the Rebbe mentioned the Chassam Sofer, but there is a kates, 1742. The Chassam Sofer, however, puts it in 1811, 1810, because he's starting it in the year 3728. Okay? That's when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Second temple was destroyed in the year 3728, which is 172 years before the year 4000. Okay. But first let's figure out where do we get this number 1842. Sorry, not 1742. Where do you get that number? It says beautiful. It says Acharei Nimkar. After he was sold, Geula Ti'allah, he will be redeemed. After he was sold, Geula Ti'allah. So what does that mean? He says the word Acharei, whenever it says Acharei, doesn't mean close. Acharei means far. Rashi says, whenever it says acharei, achar means immediately, acharei means far, a farther time. So, watch the way you gotta be very, 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 very keen and sharp to catch this. He says you got to look at the word nimkar, and the Torah says acharei nimkar, after nimkar. So we're looking at the letters that come after nimkar. So, but he says you don't look the next digit because that's achar. You look acharei. So you're looking 2 digits from nimkar. You see? Who would have thought about that? You look, you roll the letters 2 digits 2 letters ahead, not 1 digit. If it would say achar nimkar, you would roll the letter 1 letter. That means that after the nun, you would have a samach. And after the mem, you would have a nun. But you'd roll a 2 because acharei is muflag, it's far. So let's do that. Nun becomes an ayin. Nun is a 7. The mem becomes a samach. So we have an ayin and a samach. Write it down. We have an ayin and a samach. Nimkar. Chaf becomes a mem. Because 2 letters after lamed mem. And the reish is a tuf. Is a tuf. Okay. Because after shin and tuf. So now let's count that up. Tuf is 400. Mem is 40. Samach is 60, is another 100. Is what? Is 500. 570. Oh. Okay. So, wait. So, we have 570. Oh. Wait. That's the year it comes out. When you count, hold it, give me a second. When you count 17, no, wait. That's a hint, I'm sorry. That's the hint on the year. How do we get, what's the year? What did I tell you, 1810? 1810 is the year, in the Hebrew year, 1810 is the year Taf Kuf Ayin, which is, I'm going to give you the Hebrew date, 5570. 5570 is 1810. Okay, but you still don't have, where do you have the 1,000? Give me a second. Acharei nun ayin, hold on. Becheshbon, v'glal kan oiser sheni acharei oises. V'neirem zamish v'kenesher, tov kiv ayin kacho. The kolmok v'shem acharei muflig, v'chagol gen oiser sheni acharei oises, menim kabo mecheshbon acharei nun ayin, acharei mzama hamas. Tzachako tufkein, kemispar kenesher. But how do you get that? Ayin al-marati. But where does he have the 1,000? Give me a second. So where do you have? Oh, give me that a second. How come I had it before and now it flew out of my head? Okay. Okay, this is annoying. Hold on. I had it so clearly before. Give me a second. No, the year I have, understand something, 570 is a very important year. Because if you start counting from the year, take your calculator. Let's do it over here. I dafka kept this phone open so I can get my calculator out. If you do from the year 3228, which I told you is the year the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, in the year 3228, and you add 1742, I'm sorry, not 3228, that was wrong. 3728, that's what you go 3728. That was the year the Beis Hamikdash was the year the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed is in the year 3728. And then you add to 3728 1742, comes out to 554, 5,000. Why am I only having 470? Oh no, I keep on making a mistake. I don't know what's with me today. 4,000 minus 172. 3828. I know I'm off. Okay, so now equals 3828. That's when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. 3,828. Add to that 1742. 1742 equals 5570. And that's what this Acharei Nimkar. Nimkar brings you to 570. Problem is he doesn't give you where the 1,000 is. He just gives you 570. After the amount of time of Nimkar, which is 570, it's that year. It's the year after the 1,000, another 570 years, which brings you to the year Tov Kuf Ayin, 55, after the year 5,000, another 570 years. 570 years is Tov Kuf Ayin, that's the Acharei, after the word Nimkar, is 570. But then he brings another, but how does he get, where does he get that number? 1742. That's what we're busy with. That's what we need to figure out. Where does he get the number 1742? So he brings, it has to do with a pasuk that mentions Elef Hamogain, which means the 1,000 shields. It says it will be hanging upon it Shiltei Giborim. Elef Hamogain, Shiltei Giborim. See, I thought this was simpler when I was doing it. Just give me a second. Let me see in Wikipedia where we find this pasuk. Elef Hamogain, Talu Olav. There you go. Elef Hamogain Talu Olav. It's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. It says Elef Hamogain, 1,000 shields. Talu Olav will be hung on him. Kol Shiltei Giborim. Elef Hamogain Talu Olav Kol Shiltei Giborim. He says when you take the word Elef Hamogain, so the word Mogain, just Elef Mogain, without, you have the word, Elef is 1,000, Mogain is Mem Gimel Nun. Following? Mem Gimel Nun. So Nun, he says, Nun, yeah, but Nun is not 50. The long Nun, the regular Nun, is 50. The long Nun is 700. The long Nun is 700. So when you do 743 plus 1,000, it's 1743. That's already the year after the exile. I mean, that's the redemption. The exile time is 1,742. The Elef Hamogain that is hanging upon it, Kol Shiltei Giborim, that's the Geula. That's the redemption, according to the Chassam Sofer. Now he says, take a look. The word Bechor, which is over here. Here there's a struggle between Yaakov and Esau on Bechorah. So the word Bechor is gematria this amount. Let's see. We have to write out the letters Bechor. Beis, let's write out the letter Beis. When we write out the letter Beis, it's Yud, Beis, Yud, Yud Tuf. It's bias. So it's 412. You got it? Let's put it in the calculator here. 412. 412 plus Chaf. Now Chaf is tricky again. We're going Chaf is 20. Chaf Pei. But Pei is how many hundred? If Nun is 700, Pei is, hold on, I'll tell you how much Pei is. Pei is 800. The long Hay, the finishing Hay, from Manatzpach. So plus 820, plus 820, plus Reish. Reish is Reish Yud Shin. So Reish and Yud is 500, 510, plus 510, equals 1742. Bechor is 1742. And that's the amount that Esav had. You see what's going on over here? Esav had Bechor. He was the firstborn. His period of dominion and of power over his brother Yaakov as having Bechorah is 1742 years. And take a look at an amazing thing. The time that Esav, what's the time that Yaakov was ruling? What's the difference between a Bechor and a regular child? He takes double portion. So he says if you take a look at the years when Yaakov was doing well, was from Yetzias Mitzrayim until the end of the first temple. After the second temple was never really a full comeback. How many years is that? It's actually Memshelas Yisroel B'Bayis Rishon is 850 years. 850 years was the kingdom of the Jewish people till the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. Is 850. Now watch this. Let's do 850. No, hold it here. Let's do, what's Esav's years? 1742 divided by 2 is 871. So you see, he says that Yaakov's dominion was 850 years, very close to 1870 to 871, which is half the time of Esav's period. Following? Esav's period is what? Is 1742. Yaakov is half that time. That's why, because Esav is a Bechor. Esav is a Bechor. Now watch this. There was a struggle for that Bechorah. I think this is just amazing. There was a struggle for that Bechorah. Says the Chassam Sofer like this. Esav had already the Reish and the Beis of Bechorah. Watch, think about this. He has already the Reish and the Beis of Bechor, because he says to his brother, remember? He says to his brother, Yesh li Rav, I have a lot. I have already the Reish Beis. He was missing the Chaf. That's why his Malach is fighting with Yaakov. Rachel, you're going to like this. She hits him, Kaf. Kaf is spelled Chaf. She hits him in the Kaf. Because what Esav is trying to get is the Chaf, to have full Bechorah. And when he has the full Bechorah, he's got that power. 2 double portion, which is his reign, which is the year 1742. His double portion than his brother Yaakov. And that's why, if you think about when he's trying to get the Chaf. So he has full Bechor, because again, Reish and Beis he's got already. And by the way, he says the reason why he has Reish and Beis is because it's from the word Rav. Rav is Rishus HaRabim. It's the other side. Rav means multitudes. Since Esav's soul is rooted in the unholy, so he's rooted to Rishus HaRabim. Rav, that's a lot. That's on the other side. In the singular world, everything is one. But he's trying to get the Chaf. So he hits him in the Kaf. Now, watch this. If he hits him in the Kaf and he gets that Chaf, how long will he be king? Will he rule? He will rule to the year, according to the Chassam Sofer's Cheshbon, 1810. 1811, 1810. Which year is that in the Hebrew date? What did I say earlier? 5,570. Remember, the crucial numbers is 570 over here, after the 1,000. Now watch this. What does it say when he knocks him on the cuff? When he hit him in the thigh, what does it say? What happened to Yaakov's thigh? It says, Vateka kaf yerech Yaakov. Yaakov's thigh was dislodged. The word the Torah uses for the dislodging is teka tof kuf ayin, 570. In other words, that hitting him in the thigh enabled Esav to keep his kingship until that time. Now, by the way, it seems like the Chassam Sofer's prediction didn't come true because the year 1810 passed. But I was trying to play with it. It's not so simple because that's when the Napoleon Wars started, and that became the whole Enlightenment and the whole modernization, which kind of diminished the power of the church and the power of the Roman kingdom and the monarchies and those kings that had tremendous power. The first revolution against that was in Napoleon, which was exactly at that time. I happen to have looked on Wikipedia today trying to think what world events happened in 1810, 1811. I found interesting things. I want to get the Breslovers happy. I'm looking through Wikipedia, and I'm looking at all the events, and I'm saying, the Duke of this guy, this one got married, Napoleon marries this one, Queen of Austria, boom, boom, boom. All these things, I'm thinking, okay, give me something messianic, give me something. So I got excited and I sent it to my dear friend Sal Litvak. The first pilgrimage to Reb Nachman's grave for Uman, for Rosh Hashanah, was in the year 1811. So that was by Reb Nosson of Breslev, in which he took people to Uman for Rosh Hashanah on that year, 1811, for the first time. And that has become a very big growing thing, continuing now, which must have some connections to the coming of Moshiach. So it's interesting that out of all things, I was so surprised that on Wikipedia, out of all the major events that happened that year, Nathan of Breslev takes a group of this for the first pilgrimage to Rabbi Nachman's grave. So that got me excited. In any case, this is the stuff that happens in the year 1810 and in the year 1811. Okay, good. But it gets really exciting now. According to this cheshbon, Golus, one of the markers, we're just putting markers. One of the markers that we have over here is 1811 as the year of Moshiach, 1810 as the conclusion of exile, and the year of 11. But remember the number, that's very crucial. 1,742 years for the dominion of Esav. He's Bechor, he gets 2 portions, twice the amount of his brother Yaakov. Now, let's take a look at, now all of this is going to play itself out in the miniature world of Yaakov's personal life with Esav. Because remember, there is the micro and the macro. So the macro is history. The micro is the personal story of Yaakov and Esav. So watch what the Chassam Sofer says. If you take 1742, let's do the math together. You take 1742 and you divide them by 50. Divided by 50. How many times does 50? Because he's going to explain that 1 year in the life of our fathers equals a yovel. Our avos lived on a very, very high level. So by them, they lived in the yovel dimension. So by them, you see that by Yaakov says, Yesh li kol, I have everything. Different than Esav. Esav says, I have a lot. Yaakov says, I have kol. Kol is 50. So Yaakov's time, his life, he's living in a time zone of what? Which time zone is Yaakov living? Every year of his equals 50 years of history. A yovel of time. Because he's living in the world of yovel. He's living in the world of freedom. Okay? If that's the case, let's take from the 1742 years. Let's take and divide it. How many yovels are there during that time? How many 50-year chunks? Well, 34.84. Basically, you got 34 slots of 50. Okay? And most of the 35th. That would equal to 35 years, 35 years in the life of Yaakov, when Esav is ruling over him. Are you with me? 30, because again, 50 years in their lives, 1 year in their lives equals 50. Where do we find that also? Yaakov says, whatever you give to me, aser asrenu lach, I will tithe. So, but he says 2 times tithe. I will tithe. So if he says, that means, why is that? Hold on. Aser asrenu lach. So what? Oh, I will. No, if you do, how does it connect to give you 50 from 1 by saying I will? Tithing 1 time is 1 out of 10. Tithing 2 times is 2 out of 10. So that's 5. I'm not exactly sure. He just emphasized the word lach. Lach is 50. But again, okay, let's take that out. I'm sorry. I thought I had something before in my head, but that's not there. So let's go back. How many years is Yaakov running away from Esav? Well, he was in Lavan's house for 20 years, and he was hiding in a shul in the yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever for 14. Let's put it together. 14 and 20, 34. So 34 years of Yaakov, he's escaping from Esav. Translate that into history. how long is Esav going to rule? 34 jubilees, which are equals a year in Yaakov. So Yaakov is escaping his wrath of his brother Esav for that period of time. Now, on the 35th jubilee, on the last day, remember, it's 0.84. So you have most of that year, that was the year that Yaakov actually meets Esav, and he has a confrontation with him. And with the malach of Esav, that Esav injures him. So the 35th, but then he reconciles with Esav because they kiss in the end. I'm talking about simply in Yaakov's life. 34 years he doesn't see him. He's running away from him. That translates into the 34 jubilees, 34 yovels in history that are going to be in the descendants of Yaakov, fleeing Esav, meaning under the wrath of Esav, plus a 35th that's incomplete. That's that last year in Yaakov when he actually gets hit in the thigh by Esav and so on. But afterwards he reconciles with him in that year. So you see how the micro and the macro go together, according to the Chassam Sofer's cheshbon. And again, I'm feeling very strong. I'm nobody to feel, but my thought is that, in a sense, the Golus, to a certain degree, was different after 1810. In the sense that we were not under the kings, which are a continuation, the inheritors of Esav's rulership, and to a certain degree. Okay, following with me? Okay, now let's take this one step further. The only thing he says, based on all of this, comes out, and that's the meaning, he says, that, wait, but what happens right after that? After he has his encounter with Esav, in that 35th year, and he makes up with Esav, and finally, but immediately he's healed. He has a story with Dinah, which Shem happens to him that year. But then he returns to his father's house, Vayeshev Yaakov, Be'eretz Megirei Avav, all after 35 years. It's all the 35th year. He arrives back home, and then everybody's petrified of him. Vayichitas Elokim, the power of chitas, the power of fear and dread over all the nations. That's the days of Moshiach, when Yaakov's power is restored. In the 35th year, which translates into the 35th Jubilee year, which according to the Chassam Sofer is the time of the redemption. All you have to remember is one thing. 1 year of Yaakov is 50 years in history. So when you do the 50-year count, it comes out that the 35th, what it's basically saying is how accurate the life of the Avos is to the story of the children. The problem we have with all this is that the Geula didn't come then. That's the basic problem. But I'm just showing you where this calculation is going according to the Chassam Sofer. After that, he says the only problem that we don't have, the only day that Yaakov had a peaceful with Esav, comes out according to that, is the last day. In the day that he met Esav and they kissed. And therefore you have to say that in the days that there has to be one day in the day of Golos that Yaakov and Esav lived together peacefully. He says, maybe it was the days of Rebbe and Antoninus. Maybe it was that time. Again, he's not clear what's that time. A period of that period. But that should have been only 50 days, not, 1 day. Again, what does the Medrash say? The Medrash says that Yaakov asked Esav, give me 1 day. 1 day, not 1 year. That's his problem. He asked for a day. A day is only 50 days. So that's what the Chassam Sofer says, that I remain with a question mark. He says, I really don't have it out clear. And the end, I don't have it out clear, because it should have been, if we're going to say a year, we can understand it's 50 years, but what are the 50 days referring to? If he asked him for 1 day, so when Rabbi Achaz says, or going back to the Medrash, when Rabbi Achaz says that give me, all he asked him was for 1 day, and if you calculate the exile, you see that Yaakov had calmness with Esav for 1 day. That is supposed to translate into 50 days. In the end, he says, I don't really have. After all this cheshbon, the Chassam Sofer still remains with a question mark. But we have we understand how the macro and the micro come together in this calculation. That's one calculation. The second one is not at all a calculation in time, but a much easier type of a situation. He says the day that Yaakov asked from Esav has a whole different meaning. And this is really, really cool. He says that Yaakov and Esav are arguing over the blessings. They're fighting over the Bechorah. They're fighting over the firstborn right. He said, let's really analyze these energies that they're fighting over. Avram's energy, let's understand something. Avram's energy doesn't belong to Esav at all. We see that when Yitzchak meets, after he blesses Esav, let's go back later and let's jump a little further. When the drama of the blessings play out, what's the story? Yitzchak calls Esav and he wants to bless him. Yaakov comes and deceives those blessings and takes them. Then later, Esav gets one blessing. He asks his father, "You left me over for one thing." He blesses him one blessing. Then Rivka tells Yitzchak that I'm afraid for Yaakov, she shouldn't marry any of the girls. So Yitzchak calls Yaakov and gives him another blessing. This time he gives him as Birkas Avram. Hashem should give you the blessings of Avram. So he says an interesting thing. He says the blessings of Avram is chesed, belongs only to Yaakov, because Esav doesn't have a shaykhs to chesed. Esav is full of gevura. He has no chesed in it. Yaakov is teferes. Being that Yaakov is teferes, he's supposed to get the flow of chesed. So the blessings of Avram come only to Yaakov. The fight that Yaakov and Esav had was on the blessings of Yitzchak, because Yitzchak is gevura. And Esav wanted to get his firstborn. So he's supposed to get double the portion of blessing in Yitzchak's gevura diga blessings. 2 times what Yaakov is going to get. That means Yaakov is going to get 1/3 of the blessings, and Esav is going to get 2 portions, 2/3 of Yitzchak's blessings. Yaakov needs those blessings. Why? Because if he's teferes, he's a blend of chesed and gevura. What's teferes? Chesed and gevura. So he has to have an energy of gevura inside of him to make him who he is. And now he's going to wrestle on the Bechorah part, on 2/3. And he actually gets it. What does that mean? And Esav ended up with 1/3. What does that mean? He says gevura has 3 blessings to it. The energy of gevura gives us 3 powers. Number 1, wealth. In the Beis Hamikdash, we know that the wealth was on the left side, on the gevura side. The menorah, which represents godly wisdom, stood on the right side, which is south, which is chesed. The shulchan stood on the left side. And we know the rule. What's the rule that we know? We know the Gemara says that if you want to be wealthy, you should tilt a little bit B'Shmona Esrei to the north. If you want to be smart and wise, you should tilt a little bit to the south. B'Shmona Esrei. That's why my wife always tilts north, and I tilt a little south. But that's what the Gemara says. Okay, from now on, she's going to start tilting north. We're going to be very wealthy. And anyways, that's what the Gemara says, because the shulchan, which is where the bread comes, is on the north. Parnasa comes from gevura, because it's the rain and all of that. There's a discussion of that, why Parnasa comes from the side of gevura. So that's one element of blessing that comes from gevura. Another inyan and energy of gevura is to have discipline, to have the strength to discipline those who need to be disciplined, and of course to discipline yourself. So you need gevura energy for that. And there's a third element of gevura. Third element of gevura is actually the sword, spilling of blood, the actual war, the being a warrior. One is internal discipline. The other one is war, being a conqueror, a fighter, and a warrior. So he says an interesting thing. Yaakov wanted 2/3 of the blessing. He wanted the wealth, which he figured would be beneficial, and he wanted the ability, which it says, for example, Chazal say this idea that the ability to discipline and to punish the wicked, or so on and so forth, is something that it says when Shmuel Hanavi saw David HaMelech was a redhead, and he was very red. It says by David HaMelech the same thing like it says by Esav. By Esav it says he was Admoni, and by David HaMelech it says he was Admoni. So it says that Shmuel got very scared when he saw David being red. He saw him being full of Gevura. But Hashem said to him, no, he has beautiful eyes. Yefei Anayim, he has beautiful eyes. What does that mean? He's part of the Sanhedrin. And the Sanhedrin are cool, they have nice eyes. That means that the Gevura is being used by the Sanhedrin to discipline, to bring law and order in the land. That's a good thing. So, that's why part of the blessings was, have a Gevir la'achecha. Gevir means rich. Gevir also means Gevura, Gibar, to your brothers. So when Yaakov took the Bechorah, Yaakov took these two portions of Gevura, wealth and the power of judgment when it's necessary. And that's why, this is Gavaldi, so I remember I was enjoying it so much. When Yaakov wanted to bring the blessings, we know that in order to evoke a blessings, you always have to make a serusa de latata. You have to make an arousal from below. What was the arousal that Yaakov did below? He brought 2 goats to his father. Shnei Gediyei Izim. Why goats? Why goats? Why not lamb? Why goats? Goats is not the best meat. I mean, I should have brought him lamb chops. Why is he bringing goats, Dafka? The reason he brought goats is because goat comes from the side of Gevura. Lambs are from the side of Chesed, and goats are from the side of Gevura. He wanted to, but they were Geduyei Toivim. They were the good sides of Gevura. That's why they were called Geduyei Toivim. The last portion of Gevura that was left for Esav, that Yaakov has no shaykhs to, is the sword and the killing element of it. That's why lahashmid ulaharik, to go after the bloodthirstiness of that, not for Yaakov. And he didn't have anything, therefore he didn't have any kalim for it. So he only came when he tried to get the Bechorah, which is the double portion. And the bracha, he brought 2 goats, right? Esav realized that. So what does Esav say? When he realized that he robbed him from the first 2, what does Esav say? When he robbed him from the first 2, Esav says, Halo yatzalta li bracha, did you leave me over 1 blessing? Follow? 1! And I know that one belongs to me. He's asking for 1 blessing. That's 1/3 of Yitzchak's Gevura. Yeah. I'm saying, you can leave 1. We're done. We're done in a minute. Thank you. So we're just done in a second. Thanks. It's 1/3 of the blessing that he's looking. And what's the 1/3 of the blessing? It's this murderous part. That's what's left. So Esav wanted all 3 in the Bechorah, but Yaakov took 2 elements of Yitzchak, left him 1. And therefore he says, if you take the word Admoni, and it says 2 times Admoni, 1 by Esav and 1 by David. 2 times Admoni is Gematria Bechor. Same Gematria as Bechor. Bechor is 2 portions. And let's say, what did Yaakov, here's an amazing thing. What did Yaakov bring to prepare himself for the blessings? What did we say? 2 goats. What did Esav bring to prepare himself for the blessings? What did Esav bring to him? Hashem tells, his father tells him, go take your sword, your bow, and your telyacha, kashtecha, whatever. Charbecha, your sword, telyacha, which I don't know exactly what that is, and kashtecha, and your sword. Your bow and your arrow, that's the way he did it, a serusa de latata, an arousal from below for the blessings from above. And therefore, and where did he go to receive them? Where did he go hunt to hunt? He went to the fields, which is a place where the Sitra Achra hangs out. What we spell Seirim Yeraktusha. And he went, he says, Lotzit Sayid, he went to hunt, Lahavi, to bring. So the Chassam Sofer says that the words Havi, if you rearrange the letters, is Eva. Eva's animosity. And it's Rosh Tevis, these words. Eicha Yashva Badad Ha'ir. The word Lahavi. Eicha Yashva Badad Ha'ir. To create the city of Jerusalem to be empty, desolate, destroyed. It's all that murderous element that's left over in Gevurah that Esav was trying to evoke. In the end, he only got that portion. So now we can understand what Yaakov says to Esav. Yaakov says to Esav, what I want from you, sell me one day of your blessing, of your Bechorah. One day. Remember, what did he ask him? He said, give me one day. What's the one day? Yaakov has no power of using the sword. That's not his. He doesn't have that. It's Esav's thing. But on Purim was one time when the Jewish people armed themselves. On one day, B'shloisha Asar, on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and they went to war against Amalek, which were descendants of Esav. So that was when Yaakov borrowed from Esav, give me one of your days. In other words, the part of the blessing that you have, I took 2/3 of Yitzchak, but the 1/3 that you have, which is the element of the sword that Esav has, that Yaakov doesn't have, that's what Yaakov said, give me one day of what you have. And he says, but even on that day, what did Yaakov really, how do we last with Purim? We don't end up being a mob running out with swords on Purim. That's not what we do. But even on that one day, the Jewish people, Kimu v'kiblu, the Yidden received the Torah again, and a day of Adas Nitno b'Shushan Abira. So when Yaakov uses the sword, it's not Chas v'Sholem to celebrate it, even on that one day that he got permission to use the sword in which he purchased from Esav when he purchased that one day. So that's his understanding in the second period. In the first period, he's dealing with a day, meaning a period of time. And in the second period, he means a certain attribute of your blessing. Give me one day in which the midah that Esav has, in which he got. Yaakov got 2 elements of Gevurah because he really got the Bechorah. But the 1/3 that was left for Esav, Yaakov borrows that for one day in history, and that's the day of Purim, in which he needed to use the sword in order to fight back against the enemies of the Jewish people, and that's the Chassam Sofer's interpretation of this cryptic medrash. Sorry, I was a little bit off today with the dates. I thought that when I was reading it, it clicked in my head easier than when I started giving it over. I should have written it down. Okay, everyone, be well, and Bez Hashem reconvene next week to figure out what else is happening over here. The good thing is that there was once upon a time when they learned all these things, and they had to look ahead and say, oh, Moshiach, the time for the redemption needs so many years. Today, all those dates have passed already, so we have no reason to wait another second, but the opposite. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol ne'emet v'ari.